Thanks. The Ossipee Valley Railroad is a proto-freelance railroad. And in my world, it runs from my map's Old Port, which is Portland, and it runs across the Plymouth, goes into southern and southwestern Maine, and across the basically the Bear Camp, Ossipee Bear Camp Valley by the Swan Range into Plymouth. And Plymouth, it hooks up and goes up to Wells River and stuff. Interchanges with the B&M 2 spots. So that's where I put it. It's always important to put your railroad in a time frame and in a place. Okay, and this suits me fine. 1960. I like first generation diesels. I have G9s and 7s. The RS series. I have a BLM, a BL2, and of course some F units. So that's great for me. And also, as you'll see, my railroad is in a small area, so I can only use 40-foot box cars. So this is a good era for me. The stats. Okay, well, Ossipee Valley, HO, the room size is 11 by 12. That's a small room even for a bedroom. Yeah, I said it's freelance based on the B&M practices. As I said earlier, Portland to Plymouth, summer, early 60s. Now, for this small area, I have a mainline run of 139 feet, which is pretty good. That's including the helix. I have 3 levels. The minimum radius on the main is 20 and the yards 18, although I do have a couple spots where it's tighter than 18. My turnouts, I tried number 5 in the main, number 4 in yards. And again, some of the curves and crossovers, I have 6 and 8s. The height, again, my lower level is 39 inches and my top level is 62 inches. I'll talk about that in a minute. My maximum grade, I try to have 3% helix. Now, I did this in the early 2000s. Now, today I have a great app on my phone that can tell me the grade. I didn't have it in those days. I noticed that in one spot, my layout, the grade is more, almost 4.5%. But I run short trains, so it's not an issue. My bitch work, L girder in the blob, you'll see that in a minute. And under the old port section, I have open grid on the upper level. When I started this in 2000, my budget for my modeling was very limited, so I used whatever I salvaged from my past layout. So the bottom level is kind of mismatched stuff. The roadbed, I have mostly cork. I do have some foam because I couldn't buy cork as a stretch. I couldn't get any. Over Homercell with 1/2-inch plywood substrata. Again, 3/4 inch would be better, but I didn't have it. I haven't had a lot of problems with this. Every once in a while, I'll have something that I'll have to kind of shim it a bit, but it's really pretty minor. My track is microengineering code 83. On the main, I have code 70 in the yard. On the top level, I decided just to go code 83. On the lower level, on the staging area, I use my old Atlas stuff, and then I use Shinohara on the middle level, which I did back in 2000, and then the one I did, the top level, I started around 2010. I get the fast track system. My backdrop is tempered hardboard painted on photos added. I'm going to talk about how I do that today. And then my control is the MRC Prodigy Advanced 2 DCC. I started with DC back in the day, and probably around 2010-ish, I switched to DCC. And I'm still trying to switch the electronics a little bit on the lower level from that now. So I have a small space. My space is a 12-foot by 11-foot section of my basement. Okay. And when I was planning this, I had this area. Let's see if I had this area. This is where my old layout was with the tabletop layout. And I built a wall here. The furnace is right. I built the wall. I finished it off. I put electrical outlets. I put a suspended ceiling in. And I did that first. And then I went to find a track plan. Again, this is in the late 90s, no internet. I bought a bunch of books. And there's 2 books that really helped me get over the hump. The first one, which blew me away, was this book, How to Operate Your Model Railroad by Bruce Chubb. I never knew model railroads could be operated. This was an epiphany. I said, wow, I want to do this. This is great. I read this book numerous times, underlined it. I mean, now there's a lot of material out there, but back then, this was basically it. And I definitely wanted a point-to-point system. Again, at this time, I knew nobody in the hobby. I had never seen another layup. All right, I was just by myself. Along with this book, the other thing that really helped, the other book is the Track Plan, John Allen's book by Gibbons and Druthers. And so based on this, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, yard design, etc., with all of this, which is brand new to me. And, I bought other books to try to get track plans. And this is just about at the end of the spaghetti era, but especially an area this size is small. I didn't want the spaghetti look. So I searched and I finally found a track plan that I could adapt. It was a multi-level track plan, and that's what I'm going to use. And so this is if you looking in here, this is it right here. You can see I have this little area here, and it goes around the back. This is only 18 inches, very small. I designed this for me and maybe one other person. And at the most, I have 2 grandsons, 3 of us. That's the most they can operate. Sometimes my granddaughter comes, there's 4 of us. It's too much. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over each level here. So the bottom level is staging. This height is 39 inches above. And again, it's the corner, in the back corner. I have a 5-track staging yard, double-ended here. And for each level, I have a reversing loop, which is very handy. It's especially very handy here in the staging area because I can turn the trains. I don't have to do it by hand. So this right here, this goes with the helix going up. And on this side, I have a no-lix. It just kind of grades going up to the second level here. Okay. You see the view here. You see that this is the staging area. This is about a 5-inch area here, enough for me to get my hand in. I do have string lights. I have rope lights here, LEDs. It gives me a little light so I can see. I didn't want this to be really bright because when you walk in, I don't want your eyes to go down to the staging area, but it's enough for me to see what's going on. You notice the Atlas track here. I have the snap switches. And over here, I have a diode matrix. So it controls the switches. All the switches line up for one button. I also have a circuitron device in there that gives it power. So if all 5 switches go off at the same time, also that circuitron device is very important because somebody accidentally leans into it. I don't want them to fry. If you have a solenoid machine, it could fry very easily. So I have that in there. I only have so when I built this back in the day, I used the old Rick's switch machines, and so the upper level I have the tortoise machines, but I'm slowly changing the middle level because they're dying. They don't last a real long time. And so you see down here, I have this little chair, wheelie chair, and I can just go zip around that bottom level and do what I need to do if I need to change things. It's pretty good. So let's go to the middle level. So the middle level, so it comes out from the below level, comes out here. And the main line goes around the blob. I have this little yard here. This is a port in an industrial yard. Goes around the blob, comes around, comes over here. The main line is going to go up and go at the upper helix. And again, I have a reversing loop in this level also. And then I have a line goes down to the helix, down to the staging area. And then I have this little area over here, which is a brewery. I'll show you in a second. So looking in from the entrance here, looking in, this is what you see. It comes out from the down below over here. Now I had this lit at one point in time, but I did some work behind it. I had to put the light back in. So it comes out here and along this area. This is the area. This is what I did. I did the scenery here, in the early 2000s, and as most of you know, the materials we have now compared to 2002 is like night and day. So sometime I have dyed sawdust on here and like it. So I'm gonna change that eventually down the road. So this is Southport, and then I have over here. You can see it comes out the stuff from the staging down here. And this is my old port scene here. When I first built this, I used to have a stove here, a wood stove here, and I had a module I would stick on when the stove wasn't using. But I moved the wood stove, so now that's permanent. Addition to my layout. You can see here that I have the old Walters backdrop here that I applied with white glue. And you know what happens to white glue after 5 years? It dries up and everything pops off. So white glue is not what you use for the backdrop here. The other thing I want you to know is the shows here, but these are temporary paper cardstock buildings that I make. And the program I use is Model Builder by Evans Design. Anybody use that program? Yeah. It's a pretty good program. I mean, I think it's now, I just checked, it's $40. If I wanted to, I could easily cut things out, put in commercial windows, for example, put some fashion on that or whatever I want to do. It would be very difficult to know that it's paper. It does the good jobs. And whenever I'm going to build a model, scratch build a model, I always make a scale copy using this program. It's a pretty good program. Eventually, I will do these. So now we're going to look at the auction. So we're leaving here. We're going to go down to this part. This part I don't have seen it yet. So again, as it leaves, the front area goes around the corner here, and I have this right here. I have this hidden. That's where that steep, probably 4.5% grade is. I have it hidden because it's so narrow. If I had it open, I'd keep bumping into things. So I have that secure there. And again, this is looking in. You see that there's not much going on here. Over in here, I used to have my electrical panel there, so I had to have access, and I had it moved last year. So it gave me 6 extra inches. So it's very great because I have these couple industries to add some interest in operations up there, which is very good. So now we have Saco Falls. Now this is where my scenery starts. Again, I'm working on my scenery certificate for the last probably 5 or 6 years. And this is where my scenery starts. So it's going to be this part right here. So again, it comes around from the blob area. It comes around. Here's my river scene. I'll show you that in a minute. And it comes into this area. And this is looking this way into this. Again, I'm sure a lot of you recognize this as the Atlas Middlesex building. Yes. It's a great building, and I got kickbacks that. This particular building, this is my first attempt at scratch building. I took the design from some kit that I saw, and all these are kits here. And again, you notice how it goes into it's going to go into the helix is behind this, and I'm going to show you. I had to hide the fact that it's going into the helix. It's very difficult. I mean, there's not a lot of space here. Looking at a foot wide here. It's not much space. And again, a close up of this, how it goes into the helix. And you notice that I have it lit. This kind of looks like it goes into the backdrop, which is what I want, the image I want to project here. This is actually lit for this particular photo. It doesn't look like it's lit for some reason. Okay. I'm going to show you how I did this. And then we back up a little bit. And then over here, this goes over here. And I have my brewery comes in through here, and this is a old Walters kit that I kit bashed, and this is ITLA. Right, anybody use the ITLA stuff? It's great. He does a great job. It's really good stuff. And so I haven't added a lot of details yet. Before Tom comes over and looks at the scenery, I need to do that. I want to talk a little bit about my backdrops and how I do things. And Joe left, I guess. Joe gives a great, one of the things about this hobby, there's so many different ways you can do things. That's what I find very interesting. I like learning about how different people do things. And so how I do my backdrops. So first of all, I have the typical hardboard, and I paint it white, I prime it, and then I get my favorite color blue, and I start at the top. And it's important, I found, to lightly thin, put a little bit, I use acrylic, put a little bit of water in it. I don't want it really thick. I start the blue at the top, and I come down about probably 2/3 or so, and then I start the bottom and I white, and I kind of blend them together while everything's still wet. So that's how I get my blue background. Now in this particular, initially I thought I could hide this corner, but I really couldn't. So I decided I'm going to have to put a curve in here. It's too tight for me to bend the hardboard. Even if I put curves in the back of the hardboard, the radius is too tight here. So what I'm using 40,000 styrene here. I bought the longer piece, like it's 24 inches or so, and I connect it with contact cement, and again I use the joint compound, and this is what it looks like when it's done. Pretty cool. Okay. And so I have it painted, and then I added the clouds. Now, I am not an artist. I have no artistic ability at all. This year, for the first time, I opened my layout up to the Chooch, and one guy came up to me and said, "Are you an artist?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "Because your clouds are good." I said, No, I just copy what I see. I can't come up with anything original. So how do I do the clouds? So again, what I do, first of all, see this right here, folks? I get pictures of clouds. I'll be driving down the street and I say, "Oh, those are great clouds." I take pictures of my phone. I copy what I see. All right. And I practice. And there's many different ways to do it. What I do, I use a sponge and I just dab it on. So again, I get my white paint and I put tiny bit of water and I want to kind of loose. I get these sponges. These are not household sponges. They're craft sponges. They have, larger pockets in them. And I just get it. I dab on the white, dab it on. And then I'll take another sponge that I'll put my gray and I'll dab that on. And sometimes I'll wipe off some of the gray, it depends on what effect you want. And I just keep dabbing and dabbing and dabbing. If it's too dark, I dab on some more white. If it's too light, I dab on some. And I keep doing this while it's wet. And if I really screw up, what do you think I do? I let it dry and I put blue on and I try again. One of the things, my approach to this is that I wanted the clouds to be there, but I didn't want you to focus on the clouds. I want you to focus on the train. Some people want you to focus on the background. Now, I'm sure some of you know there's a club in central Massachusetts. When you walk in, the first thing you see is very dramatic thunderhead. You know what I'm talking? Anybody been there? It's over by the Worcester area someplace. I saw it last year. It's very impressive. I could not replicate that. But that's not the effect I want. I wanted you to look at it. I want to say, yep, notice the clouds there. They look normal. And I want to focus on the trains. I tried to make larger clouds. I can't do this. It just didn't come out. So I stick with small little puffy clouds. It seems to work out fine. But again, I practice first. I practice first before I put them on my back. The other thing, again, now let's talk about photos. So, sometimes you have to show on a backdrop, you have to show the fact that you have haze. But I'm going to have photos to block out most of that haze. Now, the photos that I use, and if you know Bill Brown, who's the AP regional chair, he has this company called Lock Products, and he has these CDs. He has hundreds and hundreds of photos all over the country, from landscapes and buildings and waterways, whatever. I took a clinic of his a few years ago, and I bought a bunch of them. And so that's what I'm using for this. So what I do is I get 110-pound paper from Staples, a little bit thicker, and I print them on my inkjet printer. And I have to spray. You have to spray with a mat because obviously a inkjet, water gets on there, it's going to run. Now, the key, and Jim's shaking his head, is that when you spray it, you need to put just the right amount on. You need to cover it so it doesn't run. But if you put too much on, Jim, what happens? It fades. It fades. If you put too much on at first, it fades right then. But if you put just a little bit more, it won't fade till the next day. I'll show you this in a minute. Okay? So now when I spray it, I let dry. I leave it there for a couple of days before I put it up. So I spray it with that fixture, and you notice up here the sky. So I have craft scissors, so they have kind of undulating type pattern to them, and that's what I use to cut off the top. Again, if it's a field or a building, I'm going to use straight. But for the forest here, I'm going to use this. I try to not make it straight. This is going to leave a white line because this paper, 110-pound paper, is thicker. It's going to leave a white line at the top, and you need to color that. And I've tried different things. What I'm doing now is I just take the graphite from a pencil and just have that dark gray. That seems to blend in fine. And then I'm going to glue this to my hardboard with your favorite glue. And as I said, Almus type glue does not work over time. What I'm using now, I've used the tacky glue, and it's been up 7 years, and it seems to be okay. I've tried the 3M 77 spray glue. That works real well on paper. But again, I don't know the best way. People come up with contacts, all kinds of things. That's kind of messy for me. So this is what I'm using right now. So whatever you use, let me know. Now, this photograph doesn't really show, but if you notice, these have faded. That's how I know what happens when you spray it a little bit too much. And so I would have to fix this. One of these I actually had to take off and I had to replace. But the other ones, I'm going to show you what I do, especially to hide the seams. Sometimes you can hide the seams with a tree or another building. But even, I don't care how well I do this, when it dries, it tends to just slightly spread apart. And it's not really noticeable, but it is noticeable. I want to hide those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another copy of that photo on regular thick paper, thin paper, okay? And then I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut in a regular shape, okay? 77 spray, stick it right on, hides the seams, hides, if something's faded, hides that. It works well in this case with the forest. And it's really not really noticeable if you really look for it. So that's what I did with that. Also, I cut additional pieces of the photo. Now, one of the things you have to, when you look, I'm looking for buildings, and so I'm looking in a photograph. That can be a small building, and I can use photo manipulation to enhance that. That's what I'm looking for. So I wanted a couple of buildings behind us. So I was able to take these, cut them out of that photo, put them in the photo manipulation program, skew them a little bit, size them the way I wanted, and I get glue those on the backdrop. So you can do that for, again, for forest, whatever you want. Now, my photo manipulation program is GIMP. Who uses GIMP?
I've tried and gotten almost no one.
I used to use Photoshop like everybody else back in the day. The copy I have of Photoshop is so old, it doesn't work on my computer, and now they want $20 a month. This is free. It's GNU Image Manipulation Program, I think it stands for. Free. Now, there is a learning curve, but one of the things, Glenn and others, is that you go on YouTube, GIMP, how to, and the YouTube videos that tell you everything. Okay. And I'm not an expert. If somebody who really knows this program, that would make a great clinic in the future. If somebody really knows how to use this program, it's not me. But here's an example. Now, this is a photo from Bill Brown, his images. And what I did is I flipped this, the road goes this way. I flipped this, so it goes this way. You really can't see it because it's light, but this is a springtime picture, and I have summertime. And there was a house here, okay, and I have to get rid of these houses. I had to change this, I had to manipulate this. So what it shows here, I cloned and cut and pasted. I hit this house with some forest, and I'm going to have to hide all this stuff. Some of the trees I'm going to keep. So after I manipulate it, here's the final photograph on my layout. See the road coming in, it cuts around. All the stuff I put in here. You can see this tree doesn't show that this stays the same here. You can see that. So again, this is how I'm able to manipulate backdrop photos. Okay. And I'm sure I only touched the tip of the iceberg and how to use this, but I find it very effective. And again, didn't cost me anything.
John, was that Bill Brown's photo
Yes.
on the left?
Yep.
And you were able to download that.
Well, I have, right, because I have his disc. So it doesn't matter. I get the photo, I put it into GIMP, and I flipped it so the road goes to the left. And then I was able to cut and paste and clone and all those tools in GIMP to make it what I wanted to.
I know what Bill Brown uses because I went to his clinic as well. And he had mentioned at one time he lost his house with a fire.
He did.
And the software he was using for LARC was PhotoSuite version 4. And he lost it in the fire and he couldn't get it anymore. And I happened to be in the clinic and I said, Bill, I said, I have PhotoSuite version 4 that I bought for my kids to go to school, college. I said, I never used it. So I shipped him, my new version of PhotoSuite 4 that he now continued to use for his business. And in exchange, I didn't really exchange any money. He sent me the disc.
Yeah.
Some of the disc of his products and stuff like that. But I use PhotoSuite as well.
You did.
The advantage of it is it's very good on panoramic photographs and things like that. And it seems to manipulate a lot better than Photoshop. I've got Photoshop as well, but I still am much more comfortable using PhotoSuite for like cloning.
Yep.
You're covering up stuff you don't want, like power lines at the museum, and done a lot of that at the museum with the, it's all photo backdrops all the way around.
Right.
And the thing you did with the graphite, when we'll add a little bit, because I do the edge of the paper, you don't want to see the white. I use Prismacolor wood pencils. And by using those, you can match the color
Okay,
of the tree or,
Yeah.
the grass or whatever. And that way you don't have, a dark, it's better than white. But you can match the green or the brown or whatever you're
Yeah.
doing with a Prismacolor, and you don't color it on edge, you color it, with the edge of the pencil.
exactly, right.
So anyways,
I
but
found that. Yeah.
that's good.
So, yeah, fortunately, mine are such that, they're eye level, but anyways, always looking for tips. So anyways, GIMP is what I use for my photo manipulations. It works well for me. And again, there are limitations. It's not as great as Photoshop or others, but for what we want, it would be fine. Fun, be great. All right, so I want to talk about creating the Saco River. I planned this in my design. It's called Saco Falls, right? So I want Saco River. So ideally, for those who know the area, this is kind of like in the Porter, that area of Porter, Maine area. It's got the Keezer Falls. That I'm thinking that my railroad will come through that area. So I want to create a river here. Here's my backdrop that I photoshopped and I gimped in there. And I use the pink foam. It is expensive. I bought a bunch of it years ago, so I still have some left now. It is very expensive. I don't need a lot of it. So anyways, I had the river. I wanted falls here, so I used this. And this is temporary. I wanted to see if I could make a dam, just kind of carving in this foam, and I could do that. So I have it temporarily in here. You can't really see this because the light's not good. But I carved in, this is going to be a block wall here. And then later on, you see I added some castings in here. I put my abutments in for my two bridges going over. And in here, I have my actual dam. And I based this dam, for those who know, on the Shakora Village Dam up in Shakora Village. Anybody familiar with that? Yeah, I kind of based it on that, especially you'll see the dam hardware, I kind of based it on that. And again, you see, here I have I painted I put at the bottom, I'm going to cover it with some hydrocal, and then I'm going to paint over it. And I have my bankings. I use sculptable paint, and I put my sand in this particular case. And I put, my scenery, and I get this all set up. And my go-to is Envirotex. It's what I use for my water, and then I use Mod Podge on top to add some ripples and stuff like that. Notice that again, I have photo of what I want to do. And one of the things that you need to know, Jay, is that when you're doing waterfalls, I taught for 39 years, so I look at my audience and somebody's sleeping over there. Waterfall, the water comes down at a 30-degree angle. It doesn't come down straight. So that's something that you don't think about, okay? I need to replicate that. So I need to do the waterfall up here. So what I'm going to do is I use the Woodland Scenics water effects, and I make strips, whatever length I need, right next to each other, and I'll fill in and let it dry, and then I cut it, okay? And I use, I think I may have used tacky glue up here to kind of keep it up there, let it dry. And I want it, this is going to come down at an angle, okay? And then I use Mod Podge and water effects to have ripples down here, ripples up top. And then the last thing I do is I take white paint and I just dry brush just lightly down to keep the effect. It looks like a waterfall. And again, this doesn't show, but this paraphernalia right here, this dam, is copied from the dam up at Shakora Village.
And is that still your styrofoam, or is that plaster? Your rock wall?
Oh, this is hydrocal right here. The one over there is styrofoam, it's foam. Okay, I mixed them up. I'll talk about foam in a minute. What I did. All right. Now in this level, I had trouble hiding the helix. How do you hide the helix? I mean, it's it's 12 inches away. So how am I going to do that? So it looks like it's, it looks like it continues. And one of the things, poor planning on my part, I have this terminal right here, which is a horrible place to put it. I haven't moved it. So I have to make this part so I can be removed if I need to. I haven't fortunately had to remove it yet, but it is removable. So what I did, I want to use pink foam. We'll use pink foam, and I kind of cut this out. So this is covering that, and I'm going to decide to put a bridge over this to hide. So you see how I have some of Bill Brown's photos so that it sort of looked like it continues into the background there. Again, here we have the bridges going over on top here. I added some more photos to the background. And this is the finished scene here. Again, I have my super trees up here. This going across. Notice how in the back I have this lit, so it looks like it continues right into the background here. This actually is lit. For some reason, this photo it doesn't come out. I don't know why. Now, in the helix itself, I just want to talk about helix a little bit. If I was to do this over again, I would use metal rod. Okay, but back in the day, I didn't know about metal rod, so I made it out of wood because then I could adjust it. So anyway, this is my helix. It's very difficult. This is a 20-inch diameter helix, so it's very difficult getting this, that diameter. But I have occupancy detectors here, and I just put this in Azatrax. I just put this in the last couple of years. It's very handy because sometimes I like to watch. I have my trains continuously run. Just have them go. I'll be downstairs and they're just going on. I just like the sound. I just like them going. All of a sudden, there's no sound. Where is it? So now, if it's stuck, now I know where it is. Plus, when my grandkids come over, they wonder where is this thing. So, anyways, I put this occupancy detector in, and I have it going across. It's infrared. I have it going across the track here. So let's talk about the upper level. So again, it comes out of the helix. It comes out here. It goes along. The main line comes along, goes around the blob. I have a yard over here, and then it goes, and these two tracks are staging yard. This is going to be my Plymouth staging yard. So that's a hidden staging yard. So again, I'm going to have to come up with a way to hide this up here, because this is only 12 inches right here. Okay, my height from my upper level is 62 inches, which on me is about right here, which is great for viewing, for real fanning. But I think if I was to do it again, I think I'd move it down just 2 inches so I could actually reach in. For the things in, I'd still have to use a stool, but I think I'd lower it just 2 inches for me. And again, all of us are different there. Height. Okay, so it comes out of the tunnel. I have to have a tunnel. There's no way around this. I'm going to have a major issue. I'll show you in a minute, trying to figure this out. It comes out of the tunnel here, and it goes to my town of Percival. You see, I have a paper tower here. I'm going to have to make that tower shortly. And then when it comes out here, this is the sand facility I'm working on right now, the sand and gravel I'm working on right now. Actually, I'm hand scratch building the roof corrugated siding up shingles up there. So that's what I'm working on right now. It's taking me a long time. And then it comes around over here, comes around. This is the staging area. This part, I just finished this in November. This is my staging area. So the staging area is behind us. I'll show you how I did that. And then it comes around to this blob. I have no idea what I'm going to do up here. When I originally designed this, I didn't have, this was not non-existent because I used to have again, as I said, I used to have a stove over here. So I was going to have my yard in here, but I'm going to have to have some type of town. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do there. And then again, now that I have this yard that I put in these buildings from my earlier layout, it's stuck up there for now. So I had a challenge in the upper level challenge because when I first did this, my backdrop covered the helix. Makes it easier for seeing. The problem is this really cut the viewing. It really telescoped this area, so I really couldn't see much. It made the layout look a lot smaller. So I decided, you see there's not much space. I decided to go in a foot here and go in 6 inches here, and it opens it up much more, which is great for viewing. The problem is now I have the helix showing, and I have half a helix over here showing. I have to hide those. How am I going to do that to make it look like, it's prototypical? So on the Bennett side, which is over here in the sand area. So the Bennett side, I'm going to have a tunnel here. There's no way, I couldn't figure out a way around this. And this is, quite a ways in now. So down below, I have, again, on the brewery part, I have my reverse loop. It goes under the brewery, I can lift it up, I can get at the track to clean it. But up here, this is just too wide. I really can't do the same thing. So I have a tunnel here and I have these loops, because what I have here is I took some Woodland Scenics plaster cloth and I just molded, painted it black, and that's going to hide my tunnel coming in here. But I'm going to have to put some type of shelf here to cover this. So you see, I made this shelf, and I have this piece of hill here that's made out of foam, and because I have to remove this to clean it and get at it if I have any type of maintenance to do. So this is high, this is up here, and then I have the track down here. So how am I going to kind of do this so it makes sense? So what I decided to do is I'm going to have a road. I'll show you this. The road kind of goes down around the side here. The track comes in, and I'm in the process of making this. The rails down here, and then the trucks and other things will go up here with a 2-level area. It kind of hides this whole dilemma I had, how to hide the helix fairly well. The other part on the personal side, again, this is where the helix comes around. It's only half a level, so it's only 2 inches high. Again, I have to make the shelf. Now, fortunately for me here, I can access the track from inside the helix, so I can clean it, which is great. But if I ever need to do anything major, I made this so it can be removed if I need to. And so here, again, what I decided to do, I'm going to make a road, as I said, going down and going up, and the road's going to come down here. The backdrop, I'm going to carve my sides out of pink foam board, and I'll show you that in a minute. Very similar to what Joe does. And I use sculpt mold, and it comes down. I wanted to have a road crossing here. So you see later what I did is I have my road, and one of the things I want to point out, now I'll do that later. It comes around, and one of the things I'm going to do to make my road, how I make my roads out of water putty. I've made them use different things in the past. This is almost like cement, so it doesn't crack, it doesn't chip easily. I put a little black in there, and so again, it goes right through. Because as it sets up, you can kind of chip pieces off. You can easily make lines to the road. You see right here, I'm in the process of weathering this. I have some patches here. And one of the things when you mix this up, it's like a tannish color. So when I put the black in, I don't want it to be uniform, but I want the tan to disappear. I want to have the variation in shades. So you see this coming down here. And notice how I hid this over here, that it goes up, because I have to hide how the track goes into the backdrop of the loop over here to hide that. So this goes up, and this may be a little bit, I wanted to have a narrow here, and maybe a little bit too narrow than I would like, but I stopped about an inch before the backdrop, so it looks like the road is going over the hill here. Don't have to worry about that. And here's again with some super trees here. The ground foam's all set in. This is the station that I'm going to put there. In fact, I just completed a presentation for NMRA on how I made the station. That will be coming up here in March. The station is going to have to go over here. It can't fit there. But you see how the road comes down and crosses here. And this is the finished scene. How I hid this whole area. I made this, scratched with this tall building, so it totally hides the track going behind. And this looks, wouldn't even know really there's a helix behind that. Now, one of the things I did here, I wanted to have some lights, some flashing lights coming through here. I did this a couple of years ago. I couldn't find, I wanted MJ International lights. I couldn't get any. I couldn't get any. So I found, somebody said to me, well, actually I found this online. Somebody said, well, I got some decent lights from a place called We Honest. Who's heard of We Honest? I thought it was a rip. I had no, We Honest, it sounds, but actually it's not bad. It's not, guys, it cost me, I bought this a couple of years, it cost me $5 a light. So I bought 4. I said, what do I have to lose? It cost me $36 to send for 4 lights to send from China to my house. And I got it probably in a month and a half. I had nothing to lose. And actually, the lights aren't bad. I ordered HO lights. They said they were HO. Really, they're OO. Okay. So you see, they're a little bit large. They're fine. In my layout, they're 6 inches from the edge. So they really kind of show. So if I had them deeper in the layout, maybe I could, get away with OO, but I'm going to have to change it. So what I'm going to do, I had a crossbuck, a plastic crossbuck from, someplace, and I just kind of glued that on. And my targets I'm going to make, I have all kinds of hole punches. And I think it's a 1/4-inch hole punch. I hole punched to make this, and then I cut this little 3mm circle out with a hobby knife, and I use 3mm lights here. This is going to be the same, but that's not too bad for $5. Okay.
John, are they brass or plastic?
Oh, the brass. The brass. Okay. And so this is what it looks like on the layout. Okay. And I have them set up as a track detectors. Anybody use as a track detectors? Yeah, I really like that. So I have an odd scenario because I have double track coming into the single track across the crossing. And he has different scenarios, but he didn't have my scenario. I contacted him. He got back to me the next day. He said, yeah, you need to do this. It was great service. So I have it work. I have infrared detectors. I have them under the track, except right by here. The bench work prevents me from having them under the track. So I have them across the track here. Okay, you see one is there. And I don't have it here. But when I did to hide this, I built, there was a little old crossing shanty from a Mike Tyler article, and I made it a band and I stuck it there, and that hides this one. And on the other side, I have a electrical box that I hide it. And then on the other side, I had built this building. I have the bell, and I have it in there. So I kind of had to hide these. Maybe I'll have a photo later on to show you. But anyways, we on the site, there's a lot of stuff on there, and it's very inexpensive. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about it. Although I did notice now he has separate OO and HO. So I don't know if the HO is really HO still. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's not too bad. So the staging guide. How am I going to hide the staging guide? Okay, 12 inches. I have 3 tracks and 12 inches. That's not a lot of space. So again, I'm going to use the pink foam. And you notice how here, what I tried to do here, and the lighting here is not that good. The track goes around, it comes around. I tried to make this straight, so it looks like this track goes straight, it doesn't curve. Let's talk about making cliff faces. And it's a little bit contrast to Joe. One of the things about this hobby is that there are many different ways to do this stuff, which is great. So again, what I do is I have my pink foam. This happens to be an inch thick pink foam. And what I'm going to do, again, what do I have here? I have photographs. So this is probably about 8 feet long on my layout. And so in an area next to me, next town over, there's a cut that's about a half mile long. So I took photos along the way, and I'm going to use that as the basis to make this. So again, I start, and I have a knife. I'll show you that in a minute. It's about 14 inches long, just regular knife, not serrated. And I just carve. I try to copy as much as I can there. And when I've done carving, it looks pretty good. I take sandpaper, like 150, 220 sandpaper, and I lightly sand to get all the little nubs off. Okay. And then what I do, similar to a Joe, but I put just a thin skin on it with my finger. I take joint compound and I just lightly go over this because the foam has a porous look to it. And this will prevent that. So I just lightly go over this with my finger, and then I'll use like a popsicle stick to kind of dig out any crevice, and maybe a toothpick if it's really tight, and let that dry. And then I put my base on. And this particular one, I have a wash of India ink. Sometimes I'll take gray and I'll just kind of put a wash on it. It's a heavy wash. You notice earlier, now, geologically, in Western Maine, the rock is more sedimentary. It's more earth tone. As you get more towards Plymouth, it's more igneous rock. It's more gray. So I try to replicate that in my my layout. So over here, where I am right now, is more towards Plymouth, so the rock is gonna be gray, so my base is gonna be gray. And then what I do, just like my clouds, okay, I take, I put all my siennas and my umbers and my grays and my khakis and all the colors I have. And, I just put a little water in there and I just dab it on. You do not want a solid color. You want to just put layers and layers and layers. And again, if I screw up, what do? Do it over again, okay? And again, I'm copying the photographs, right? Making tree covered hills, how I do that. Now I have a lot of trees to make. The look I'm looking for here, I want to have a distance. I don't want to have it look like it's really close. So I don't want to use regular super trees. I thought the scale didn't look right to me. So I'm going to have to make a puffball type tree. Okay. We're all familiar with puffball. Before I start, okay, now this is the shelf I made that's going to go over there. And I'm going to glue on my rock castings and hydrocal, and I have them already, my base layer, and I'm going to add more color later on. And I use sculptor mold around to fill in. It's nice and light work. It's not messy. That's the big thing with this. Now, in this particular area, you notice that down here, I don't have the pink foam because it was so tight to the track. I had to use sculptor mold. I couldn't do pink foam, it would hit. So I had a very thin layer of sculptor mold. I try to carve that, make it look like rocks best I could. And then, of course, I paint my sculptor mold, and I'm going to put my dirt on. Now, again, this part of New Hampshire, the dirt tends to be more loamy. In Maine, it's more sandy. So I got this dirt from my backyard a couple of years ago. I have a big bag of it. I've sifted. I have various strainers of different sizes. Okay, and I do that, and I put glue on it and make sure that's solid. And I'd put some ground foam on this, but because it's going to be a thick forest, I'm only going to put ground foam in the front. So I'm going to make my puffball trees. I'm sure most of you made puffball trees. I use the Woodland Scenics, Woodland Scenics polyfiber. There we go, green. And again, I want to make my trees about an inch and a half in diameter because I want this feeling of distance. So I pull a little bit out, round it in my hands, because it's a little nice little balls, and then I take my 77 glue here, and I'm going to spray it. When you put the glue on, it's going to turn into a tannish color, which is fine. And then immediately I'm going to go over and I'm going to get my ground foam, my coarse ground foam for HL scale, and I'm going to sprinkle it on and spray it with hairspray, and sprinkle more on, spray it with hairspray until I get it, and I'm going to let it set and dry. And I make the same color in batches. You want multiple colors, by the way. So this is probably light green. I make a tray of light green. Then I'll make a tray of medium green. I tried dark green, but dark green looks more evergreen tree. So I didn't really use that. Sometimes I use an olive color. But I like the medium green and the light green seem to work well for me. So I have my puffball trees, okay? Then I take them on my layout and I'll glue them in with white glue. Sometimes in the hills I have to use the T-pins to make them stick. Okay, I found that the super leaves that you buy with super trees do not make good puffball trees. They make great super trees, but not good puffball trees. So I have my puffball trees up there. Then the twist, which I really like, is that I make a bunch of super trees, and I vary. I use light and dark, and I use super leaves. I use all kinds of different textures here. And I make my tree, and I cut off all the branches. But what I'm going to do is I take these branches, I'm going to stick them between the puffball trees to give you that look of a canopy, not just a rounded puffball. So what you see here is you see how it looks like it's the actual forest and not just a puffball hill. And I think that's come out really well for me. So
Great idea.
you'll be seeing it shortly.
John, you gotta watch.
Done. Right.
Oh,
My lighting here, I used to have fluorescent lighting, and I took them out, and the blobs, I had these construction sockets, and I used to have the curly Q lights. And what I found over time, some of my stuff was fading. because of the UV rays. So I went to LED lights. If I was to do it again, I'd use strips, but I didn't do that. I just want to point this out. Now, in the blob, I have these lights and I had to hide them, otherwise they're obvious. So I have these suspended ceiling, these grates, plastic grates I could put in. This is, if you look up straight, this is what it looks like. You see, I have a rope light, a blue rope light for night. But if you look the side, you don't even notice that the lights are there. It hides that whole scenario there. Okay. Lastly, I do have nighttime. I can run things at night. And that's it.